Keir Starmer is in the battle of his life to save his premiership. The Prime Minister faced a Commons showdown on Monday when he set out further details of the error he claimed was made by his officials in not telling him that Peter Mandelson had failed security vetting. He called that decision frankly staggering. Keir Starmer started off by saying he takes full responsibility for appointing Mandelson as the UK's ambassador to the US, saying that his judgment was wrong. He said he would not have made the appointment had he known that Mandelson had failed security vetting.
Mr. Speaker, I know many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government. That is not how the vast majority of people in this country expect politics, government or accountability to work. And I do not think it's how most public servants think it should work either. I work with hundreds of civil servants, thousands even, all of whom act with the utmost integrity, dedication and pride to serve this country, including officials from the Foreign Office who, as we speak, are doing a phenomenal job representing our national interest in a dangerous world, in Ukraine, in the Middle East and all around the world. This is not about them, but yet it is surely beyond doubt that the recommendation from UKSV that Peter Mandelson should be denied developed vetting clearance was information that could and should have been shared with me on repeated occasions and therefore should have been available to this House and ultimately to the British people. And I commend this statement to the House.
Kemi Badenoch slammed the PM with allegations that he misled Parliament after telling MPs that proper process had been followed in his appointment of Lord Mandelson as the US ambassador.
His reputation is at stake. Everyone is watching. It is finally time for the truth. Earlier today, Mr. Speaker, Downing Street admitted that the Prime Minister inadvertently misled the House. The Prime Minister has chosen not to repeat that from the dispatch box. I will remind him that under the Ministerial Code, he has a duty to correct the record at the earliest opportunity. The Prime Minister says he only found out on Tuesday that Peter Mandelson failed the security vetting. The earliest opportunity to correct the record was Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday, almost a week ago. This is a breach of the Ministerial Code. Under that code, he is bound to be as open as possible with Parliament and the public in answering questions today. So let me start with what we do know. We know the Prime Minister personally appointed Peter Mandelson to be our ambassador to the United States. We know that Mandelson had a close relationship with a convicted paedophile. We know that he had concerning links with Russia and China, links that had already raised red flags. We know that the Prime Minister announced the appointment before vetting was complete, an extraordinary and unprecedented step for the role of US ambassador. The Prime Minister says that it was usual for this because it was a political appointment. So I will remind him and the rest of the Labour front bench who are heckling that Peter Mandelson was a politician who had been sacked twice from government for lying. That meant he should have gone through the full security process. And we also know, finally, Mr. Speaker, that when Peter Mandelson failed the security vetting, he was allowed to continue in the role with access to top-secret intelligence and security information. This goes beyond propriety and ethics. This is a matter of national security. So let me turn to what we do not know. We still do not know exactly why Peter Mandelson failed that vetting. We do not know what risks our country was exposed to, and we do not know how it is possible that the Prime Minister said repeatedly that this was a failure of vetting, went on television and said things that were blatantly incorrect, and not a single advisor or a single official told him that what he was saying wasn't true. At every turn, with every explanation, the government story has become murkier and more contradictory. It is time for the truth.
Now, Sir Keir tried to make it crystal clear to MPs that he had been kept in the dark, and that was unforgivable that Foreign Office officials had not told him that Mandelson failed vetting. The Prime Minister's defence was to blame those officials in not telling him or then Foreign Secretary David Lammy about the failed vetting. Now, Sir Keir effectively fired the Home Office's top official, Sir Ollie Robbins, last week after it emerged that Lord Mandelson had been given developed vetting status despite failing checks carried out by the agency responsible for assessing security clearances. Whitehall veteran Sir Ollie is expected to give his own account to MPs on Tuesday at the Foreign Affairs Committee. Although civil servants, rather than ministers, make those decisions on vetting and clearance, there was nothing in the law that stopped them from telling the Prime Minister the outcome. The PM says he was not informed about the vetting issue until Tuesday evening, after the information was uncovered as part of files being gathered to comply with the humble address, which compels the government to publish all information in relation to Mandelson's appointment. Allies of the PM insisted that today, Monday, was the first opportunity that Starmer could come to the House and lay out the facts. That's despite appearing at PMQs on Wednesday. The scandal has fueled calls for Keir Starmer to get the chop.
Mr. Speaker, everyone makes mistakes. It is how you face up to those mistakes that shows the character of a leader. Instead of taking responsibility for the decisions he made, the Prime Minister has thrown his staff and his officials under the bus. This is a man who once said, "I will carry the can for the mistakes of any organisation I lead." Instead, he has sacked his Cabinet Secretary. He has sacked his Director of Communications. He has sacked his Chief of Staff. And he has now sacked the Permanent Secretary of the Foreign Office. All of these people fired for a decision he made. The Right Honourable Gentleman's defence is that he, a former Director of Public Prosecutions, is so lacking in curiosity that he chose to ask no questions about the vetting process. He asked no questions about Mandelson's relationship with Epstein. He asked no questions about the security risk Mandelson posed. Apparently, he didn't even speak to Peter Mandelson before his appointment. It doesn't appear that he asked any questions at all. Why? Because he didn't want to know. He had taken the risk. He had chosen his man. Whitehall had to follow. It is the duty of the Prime Minister to ensure he is telling the truth. Or does the Ministerial Code not apply to him? I'm only holding the Prime Minister to the same standard to which he held others. On the 26th of January 2022, the Right Honourable Gentleman said to a previous Prime Minister at this dispatch box, if he misled the House, he must resign. Does he stand by those words, or is there one rule for him and another for everyone else?
This is the last thing the Prime Minister would have wanted on the eve, virtually, of local elections, which are just a matter of weeks away. Lord Mandelson himself was also pictured out on a dog walk with his head in his hands. Now, Scottish Secretary Douglas Alexander said that he expects Sir Keir to survive to lead Labour into the next general election, but added that there are no certainties in politics. This is the last thing that Starmer would want to hear weeks out from Britons heading to the ballot box. Ultimately, whether Keir Starmer knew about this betting issue or not is somewhat irrelevant. He decided to make Mandelson the UK's ambassador to the US, despite knowing about his close association with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. And the government is being forced to comply with this humble address, that lever pulled by the Tories. So more information is bound to come to light.
When I found out what had happened on Tuesday evening last, I wanted to have answers to the question, who made the decision to recommend, to give clearance on developed vetting contrary to the advice, why that was done, and who knew about it, so I could provide the information to the House, Mr. Speaker. That is the exercise that's been conducted since Tuesday evening and today, so that I could come here today to give the full account to the House, which I've just set out. Mr. Speaker, she asked me about developed vetting security clearance after the appointment. I set out that wasn't me saying that. I read out the evidence of the former Permanent Secretary about that, and the former Cabinet Secretary in relation to that. And I think the quotes that I've given to the House are clear enough in relation to that. She also asks why Peter Mandelson failed. Mr. Speaker, it's important to make a distinction between the information provided to the review and the recommendation. The information in the review must be protected and has been protected, because otherwise the integrity of the entire system would fall away. But the recommendation doesn't need to be protected and should not have been protected. Mr. Speaker, in relation to her questions, in relation to the answer about full due process, that was the information that I had, that I put before the House, and it was confirmed to be by Sir Chris Wormold, because in September I asked him to conduct a review of the process to assure me that the process was correctly carried out. He did that and wrote to me on the 16th of September, giving me his conclusions. In relation, Mr. Speaker, to reports in the media, Number 10 was repeatedly asked about the facts surrounding Peter Mandelson's clearance and was assured that the proper process was followed in that case. Mr. Speaker, in relation to those in Number 10, let me give the answer. Nobody in Number 10 was informed about UKSV's recommendation. Mr. Speaker, just to be clear and for the record, the Cabinet Office Permanent Secretary did receive information recently and then sought the necessary and legal advice. Once those checks were completed by the Cabinet Office Permanent Secretary, I was told, that is in the last 2 weeks or so, that was entirely the right procedure, to get the legal advice and then to bring it to my attention at the first opportunity. It was the right procedure that was followed by my officials in the last few weeks. Mr. Speaker, in relation to why I was furious about the process, for the very reason, Mr. Speaker, I strongly believe I should have been given this information at the very outset. I strongly believe there were repeated times when I should have been told. I should have been told on appointment. I should have been told when Peter Mandelson was sacked. The Cabinet Secretary should have been told when he reviewed the process. The Foreign Secretary should have been told before she was asked to sign a statement to the Select Committee. And I should have been told when I ordered a review of vetting, Mr. Speaker. In relation to the point she makes about what I said in February in answer to a question of hers, I make it very clear, Mr. Speaker, I had not seen the security vetting file. I did not know that UKSV... The question asked me about vetting. I knew about the due diligence, and that's why I put before the House what I knew about the due diligence in relation to Epstein. The question asked me about vetting, and I knew what the due diligence has said, and therefore I told the House what the due diligence has said. I didn't tell them what security vetting had said because I hadn't seen the file in relation to that. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the particular details in relation to Peter Mandelson, I acted on all of the information I had available to me. The simple fact of the matter is I should have had more information. I didn't have that information. The House should have had that information, and I've now set it out in full to the House.
While this headache continues for Starmer, those could be plotting away are future Labour leadership contenders. Angela Rayner and Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham were spotted meeting this weekend for secret talks. The bombshell revelation has fueled rumours that the pair are hashing a plot and the PM could face a leadership challenge within weeks.